Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast. This is a special edition because we have an absolute gem of a show today with special guest Bucs head coach Todd Bowles. Will be joining us in just a moment. First, your reminder that the Pewter Report podcast is presented by Briar-Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on for auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, and business insurance. Give Briar-Greaves Insurance your business. Locally owned and operated here in the Tampa Bay area by the Greaves family. There's no better place to turn, especially with hurricane season now upon us. We've got a great show, but make sure that you find out more at briargreavesinsurance.com. They're big fans of Todd Bowles as well. Give them a call at 813-876-4166. And as I mentioned, we have got a special guest today. We're going to be talking with Bucs head coach Todd Bowles, who has done nothing but take this team to the playoffs and win NFC South championships since taking over for his mentor, Bruce Arians, after he helped the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl as the defensive coordinator back in the 2020 season. And alongside me today, while we interview Coach, is Bailey Adams. I'm your host, Scott Reynolds, and we'd like to bring on both Bailey Adams and Todd Bowles today. Coach, thanks for joining us.
No problem. How you guys doing?
Doing really good. We appreciate you joining us on the Pewter Report podcast. As I've told you, and I've talked about it in the podcast, I've written about it on pewterreport.com. I've loved everything you've said and done this offseason. I really commend you on making some changes to take this team to the next level. And I wanted to start off with one of the new additions to the staff. We talked about this at the NFL annual meeting, adding Zach Beesline to help out on situational football on game days when you get a lot on your plate trying to run the defense and figure out who's healthy and can go and all of that. And you talked about his addition and how that's going to help you. But what have you guys been able to accomplish so far this offseason to prepare for game days? And can you tell us a little bit about what that process has been like so far?
Well, first, he's met with the coaches. He's met with the coordinators first. We all had a meeting and sat down and give a baseline of a lot of situations. And then I met with the offensive staff so everyone can hear it and be on the same page. And last week we put them in front of the entire team so we can be a smarter football team in situations. It's not just coming from the coaches. It has to come from the players as well. Obviously, with most of the situations being offensively, there are some situations defensively that we've been working on that we can get together with. But he's a wealth of knowledge. He's very bright. He does a lot of homework. I mean, he is like a whiz for us, and the information that he's been giving out, guys have been hearing it for the first time or didn't even know some of those things existed. So hopefully that helps us become a smarter football team and play better in certain situations.
Sounds like that'll be the case. And Coach, obviously we're in OTAs right now, second week of OTAs kicking off this week. Do you expect Hassan Reddick to be there this week, or is he going to be there for mandatory minicamp? Or is he coming this week, or do you think he's going to be there next week only? And how excited are you to see your pass rusher in action?
I'm excited to see him. Again, all this is voluntary. He's not the only one that's here, but I know he's working out and he's working hard. So when he gets here, we'll be excited to have him, be it this week in OTAs or be it next week in minicamp. I don't think it's as big a deal as it used to be with guys like, that are working out and they're going to be in shape when they come in. So, we look forward to seeing them when we see them.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in a recent Pewter Pulse video, it's not like he's been away from the facility. He took part in some of the phase 1 work with the team.
Yes, he did. Well. I mean, he puts in a lot of work, and he works out hard, and he has a very good trainer that he trusts that they get the work done, and he's putting that kind of work in right now.
What are your thoughts about the 2025 schedule in terms of the primetime games, the 2 road games to start the season, and the placement of the bye week this year?
The placement, I think, is very good. This is the first time I think we play a late Thursday game. Usually the Thursday night game is a little earlier, and that's kind of a mini bye, but we don't have that right now. The Thursday night game is probably much later in the season that we're used to, which is pretty much in December for the most part. And the rest of it, you kind of just go with it. You kind of know who you're playing. It's just a matter of where you play them at. For me personally, I always look at the cold weather games in December, which Buffalo is down there. Hopefully that's not as bad.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, it's going to be a tough schedule every year. When you come in first place, you're going to get a first place schedule.
Yeah.
You're going to play some opponents, so you get to test your mettle.
Coach, I think we know the answer to this one, but does any part of you at all have that Jets game circled in week 3, just obviously facing them for the first time since you were their head coach back in the day?
No, and we played them up there. I think it was 2 years ago, my first year, and we beat them up there. So this will be my second time actually. So and we're playing them here, so I'm happy about that. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of good people in that building, and me and Aaron McGlenn are very good friends. And it's another game on our schedule. We're trying to win. There's no hard feelings there.
All right, Coach. Are there any hard feelings among the Buccaneers and you and the NFC South rivals? Who is your biggest rival in the South? And is there anyone that like a team that really just kind of gets under your skin in the South the most?
I think all of them. I don't want to lose to any of them. Honestly, it's critical to win division games, and I know it feels like Atlanta, but you can't sleep on Carolina, and New Orleans is always tough for us. So it's all of them for me. Division games are extra big because they count for a game and a half in the standings.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and speaking of Atlanta, who you just mentioned, obviously the tough 2 losses last season, but you get an early look at them this year in week 1, and you guys are 3-0 with you as the head coach in week 1s, including winning at Dallas and at Minnesota over those 2 years. So what are your thoughts at getting Atlanta so early and opening up the season with them?
I think this is the first time we've had a division foe so early in the season, at least since I've been coaching. So it'll be the first game, so it'll be exciting. It'll be down there, and the 2 exciting games we played last year, obviously it'll be a lot of fanfare there. So we hope to clean up a lot of things. I know they'll be a different team and a better team, and I know we'll be a different team and a better team. So we just look forward to it when it comes.
What is it that has made you guys so successful in week 1 under you as the head coach?
The guys' preparation, getting ready to play. We have a good mix of coaches and a good mix of veterans that really get these guys prepared for the first game. And we have some situations in practice that they go through battleground parts of it, especially the new guys. So when the first game comes around, it's pretty status quo for us, and you don't know what to expect from the other team. They don't know what to expect from you. So it's really premium that we concentrate on our keys and make sure we do our assignments until we get a bunch of film on people. The first 3 or 4 games are going to be tough.
Yeah. This is the 50th year of the Buccaneers. You know that. It's certainly been talked about really since last season ended. I want to go back for a moment to Super Bowl 55 as you and the Bucs were chasing another Super Bowl title this year. How often do you reflect on that Super Bowl? And when does that reflection occur? Does it occur in the off season where you might think about this or that about that game and winning that Super Bowl ring? Or is it something that might happen during the regular season as you're preparing, or something triggers a memory from that Super Bowl season?
For me, I don't reflect on it. I don't think it's anything you can reflect on until you retire, because there's always something coming up the next day and the current day. The only time I reflect on it is when I look at the quarterbacks we faced, and it's not really just the Super Bowl, but it was Mahomes, Rodgers, and Breeze all at the same time. And I think they're 3 of the greatest quarterbacks that played the game, amongst a few others. But that part of it, the run, was pretty impressive defensively, because we had got a bunch of turnovers in each game.
Obviously, what was extremely impressive was what you guys were able to do to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And when you guys are up 21-6 at halftime, and even when you're up 31-9 with 15 minutes left going into the fourth quarter, what's kind of going through your mind at that point as the defensive coordinator?
I'm hoping he doesn't get hot and he gets on a roll and makes some plays on us. But at the same time, just wanted to make sure everybody kept their focus, and the guys did a good job of keeping their focus and getting after them and putting pressure on them.
Todd, you're likely one of only a number of men that has ever won a Super Bowl as a player with the Redskins, Super Bowl 22, as an executive with the Packers. That was Super Bowl 31. And then as an assistant coach with the Bucs back in Super Bowl 55. If you win a Super Bowl as a head coach, you may be the only person in NFL history to win 4 different Super Bowls in 4 different NFL capacities. Did you know that? And how much does this quest for a Super Bowl with this team drive you?
I did not know that. And, it drives me every year. The biggest goal you can have as a coach is to win the Super Bowl, whether you're a head coach, assistant coach, or whatever. I've done it at every level. So for us to win one with me as the head coach would be outstanding. And that's what we're hungry for.
Yeah, and another question on kind of, reflection or your place in Bucs history. You've had 27 wins in the last 3 seasons with Tampa Bay. 5 more this season will move you past Bruce Arians, your mentor and friend, into 4th place with the most in Bucs history. 15 more, you'll have 45 and be ahead of John McKay and only a little bit behind John Gruden. What are your thoughts on your place in Bucs history so far? And I think, again, we know the answer, but is that something you think about at all with this being the 50th season?
Honestly, I hadn't thought about it at all. I never thought, Bruce was a heck of a head coach. They've had Gruden, they've had Dungy, they've had McKay. They've had some great people in this building. I don't try to be the best Bucs coach of all time. I try to be the winningest Bucs coach every year against the division and try to get to the Super Bowl. That's really my goal every year.
Yeah, you've had the privilege of working for some amazing head coaches. Speaking of Super Bowls, I mean, Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells, Bruce Arians, are all Super Bowl winners that you've worked for. What's one thing that you could maybe take away from each one of those guys, Gibbs, Parcells, and Arians, that you've incorporated into your game as a head coach?
Coach Gibbs was a stickler for details. I mean, he was an offensive coach, but he was on the defensive side of the ball when we were running defenses, and he would try to learn all the time. He would try to learn defenses so he can figure out how to beat it on offense. and that's great. And I thought that was outstanding. So that taught me how to look at offenses with him on defense in the back every time. And he'd ask the coverage, and I'll tell him, and he was like, okay. And then he would really dissect the game from a different standpoint. He wasn't over on the offensive side. He was on the defensive side.
Right.
Back in the secondary, Coach Parcells, I mean, wow, I don't know what to say about him. He's such a knowledgeable guy, and not just a defensive guy, but he taught me how to see everything on the field, even in practice, whether it was coaches, whether it was players. You can learn something from everybody. What time the owner came out on the field, where the trainer stood. He taught me so much knowledge about the game, not just on the field, but especially off the field. And Coach Arians taught me how to be aggressive, and not just saying you have to blitz every play, be aggressive, but aggressive is as in never surrendering and making sure when you're rushing 3, it's some type of aggression there. If it's in the coverage, it's some type of aggression there. Yeah. And the more you get down and the more injured you get, the more you empty the clip and you shoot your guns, so to speak, as far as play calling. And, he taught me a whole bunch of that. And he really taught me how to coach coaches, because he can put drills together and you think it's for the players, but it's for the coaches as well. So I've incorporated a lot of that in the things that I do. And, my defensive coordinator when I played, Richie Pettibone, and my DB coach, Emmett Thomas, probably taught me more fundamentals and technique and schematic football than anybody I've been around.
Well, I'm sure Coach Arians, too, taught you all about your feisty, fiery sideline demeanor, that you're known for, Coach. Here's a couple of examples of you just in an absolute pure rage, like Bruce would get, yelling at refs and all of that, right? No, but I kid about that only because you and I have had a conversation, and you shared with me, and I wrote about it in a Fab 5 column before training camp last year. And I want to just kind of share this with the audience here, because I think you get knocked just like Tony Dungy got knocked for just kind of being stoic on the sidelines all the time. And you're really not. It just happens to be when the camera catches you, I think. But you told me, and I quote, "I can get emotional at times. I can get frustrated, but I have to get right back. If I get so emotional and panic, then I think then I can't think the game that I want to think." And you also told me that, Coach, you get worked up on the inside, but then you smile. And you said, and I quote, "That smile says 50 different things. It can be, I can't effing believe this. It can be, I'm happy. It can be, you're full of crap, ref. It can be an array of things. It's always different for me, but it works for our defense because if I don't panic, then the players never panic, and then they always feel like they have a chance to win the game. Can you just kind of expand on that a little bit? Because I thought that was a very poignant quote that you had, and it just says a lot about what you're trying to accomplish. There's a method to your madness when it comes to that smile that we see on the sideline sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's a very emotional game, and the smile is the only way I can't get a 15-yard penalty. So, it can be a whole bunch of things. It can be a eek, it can be a cuss word, it can be eureka, it can be a whole bunch of things. But you have to get back. I think ever since I've been here, we've been young, kind of in the secondary on defense somewhere. Yeah. And when we got here, I think it was Dean Bunning, Mike Edwards, and all those guys were very young. And then Winfield came. So it's important that you communicate. I yell all during the week. I can get my yelling out during the week. Monday through Saturday, I can get it all out. Sunday, it's almost laser focused. Like, what do you do next? It's almost like playing chess. You have to be looking at the next move. So you've never heard a chess player yelling at the other side of the board before he makes his next move. I know this game is a lot more emotional and high strung than the chess is, but you try to keep your emotions over wraps on some things. And then a lot of times the camera's just not on me when I'm doing certain things, and they just point out the little stuff. So that's just part of it.
I'm glad you mentioned the part about, getting that yelling out between, Monday through Saturday, because I just want to ask you, you're known as a player's coach, and players have talked a lot about how you'll talk some trash to them on the field. Who are some of the players that talk the most trash back to you?
Ooh, that talk back to me. Will Golston, when he was here, he did a heck of a job talking back to me. Dean always talks back. Levante, I get a few zingers in there here and there, and he gets some in at the same time. Vita is a very sarcastic player at the same time, so he gets shots in. Yaya will stay away from me. He gets it. He knows. He just nods and say yes, coach, because of any other answer, he's probably going to get it 10 times worse.
Right.
And Tristan off the field, when we run by each other in the hallway, he gets a couple of shots in there here and there, but it's just a matter of time. And of all people, Chase, the kicker of all people, the relationship we have. Oh yeah, Chase he goes from dad jokes to taking a few shots at me here and there. So we have a pretty good time at that. And I think I got him last, so I think I got one coming from him.
That's a bit of a shocker right there, I think. Yeah,
that's everybody gets it.
Don't try to ice your own kicker, coach. That's the only thing, right?
I never try to ice my kicker.
Yeah.
Coach, kind of speaking back into the beginning of your journey and even back to your playing days, when was it that you first knew that you wanted to be a coach in this league toward the end of your playing days?
I didn't. Everybody said thought I would be a good coach. I think back when I played, the safety ran the entire system. So I went to the sidelines during the timeouts. I made the huddle call. I had the kind of green dot, so to speak. But there was no dot, but you did signals. So I made all the calls. So obviously I had to know everything. And when somebody messed up, it was my fault. Whether the D-line didn't stunt, the linebacker didn't drop, I had to make the correction. It all fell on me. So I kind of started doing it while I was playing. And my two coaches thought I'd be a heck of a coach, and I wanted no part of coaching. Emmett Thomas probably gave me the best advice you could ever give somebody. When I finished playing, he said, if you want to be a good coach, you got to get away from the game for at least 2 years, because if you don't, you'll be coaching guys as if just like you were playing, and you'll be very disappointed because they won't be as bright, and you won't be able to expand your mind no more than how you played, as opposed to just coaching them or how you see it. And that was very good advice, and I took that advice.
That's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Let me ask you this. Which current players do you see as future football coaches on this Bucs roster, and why?
Ooh, on this roster, I think Levante can coach if he wants to coach, because he's very bright, and he has a bright football mind on both sides of the ball. I think Kyle Trask will be a good football coach. Kyle has a very broad mind, both sides of the ball, and he understands the game very well from that standpoint. The other guy that's a very sharp player, Anthony Nelson, is a very polished guy. He can coach ball if he wants to because he's a very good technician and he understands what to do and how to relay it all the time. So Vita, if he wanted to really be a coach, he could be a coach because he's played offense in high school and he understands the game very well. So there's a few guys that really kind of step up and kind of you can tell that they can be coaches if they want to be.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Many Bucs players have praised you for being a player's coach and keeping the locker room tight knit. Has your ability to connect with players changed over the years, or is that something that you've always had, just to be able to connect with players, even as you've gotten older and the players, the new ones, you get a rookie class every year, they keep getting younger. How have you been able to be a coach that connects throughout the years with your players?
It's changed completely. Believe it or not, when I started coaching in college at Morehouse and Grambling, I was a yeller and a screamer. I would get on people's asses like you wouldn't believe. And it was, I think as I got older, I calmed down some to a point where I try to understand them. Players want to be heard. You don't necessarily have to do what they say, but you got to at least listen and hear where they're coming from. And because I played, it gives me insight to how they see plays and how they see the game and what they're talking about. So I can really break it down and talk to them on that level. So I think that's where it mostly comes from. But players, coaches, probably to a point. But believe me, when they don't run into the end zone, when they get a turnover in practice, they're running after practice. They're running gassers, believe me. If there's a fine line between players, coach, and you better do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, I just wanted to ask you, too, kind of speaking back to preparation, I know you mentioned it going into week one, and that's part of the reason you guys have been as successful as you have been in week one. But how many hours of film would you say that you watch maybe during the off season and then in a given game week?
During the off season, there's probably minimum 8 hours somewhere in there because you have the time.
You mean a day or a week?
I like to look at everything we've done, then both sides of the ball, then kind of break it down by formation or calls or good or bad or whatever, big plays for us or big plays for them, and kind of see what kind of players we have and where I see the defense is going before I even watch it with the coaches. And then once we start watching it as a staff, we watch all that all over again for the most part. But me, I get in so early that there's always a project on my plate that I put on my plate that I want to see. And I want to see where the game is going, who's doing what, who's good in the red zone, who's good on third down, who's stopping the run. Why is this team so good against the pass? Are they doing anything different? Does what they do fit us? Can we tweak some things? What kind of players do I think we need going forward? There's a whole mental process schematically. Where's the league going? How many teams do we play that run the same offense? And you kind of go through that. And within the scheme of all that, I think it's a good 8 to 10 hours a day.
Wow. Film junkie. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Coach, in your time in Tampa, I know you mentioned earlier when you first were defensive coordinator with Dean, with Sean Murphy-Bunting, those guys, Mike Edwards. Now you've been coaching Tyke Smith. You've got 2 rookies in the secondary this year, and Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish. What is the challenge like when you're trying to get the most out of these rookie safeties and kind of teach them the scheme, but also, you know, they're adjusting to life in the NFL and adjusting to the life change they're going through? What's that challenge like, trying to get the most out of them?
The biggest thing is trying to see what makes them tick, and you're trying to get to know them as people as well as players, how they think the game, how they see the game. Then you try to teach them that way. So coming in, you don't know all of that because other than working them out and talking to them for a while, you really don't see everything. You see some things on the field, some things may surprise you that you'll learn, and you try to see how that player, what makes them tick. And that's the biggest thing for us as coaches, trying to see what makes them tick. That's the challenge every year. And it kind of clicks early for us in camp, and we move a lot of people around just because in season you get so many injuries. You want to say, hey, he can probably play inside some if we needed him to. He can play emergency safety, or He can play special teams or whatever the case may be. The challenge is trying to see how much flexibility these guys have, because you don't get to dress that many people in the pros like you do in college. So we try to get those guys in and get them acclimated to the system and see how fast they learn and how do they learn, number one. And we try to give them enough bullets in the spring, like right now. So when they come back to training camp and we get in pads, they're on a level playing field with the veterans.
Coach, we had Yaya Diaby and Zion McCollum on the podcast earlier this offseason, and one of them, I forgot who it was jealous of the offensive line because of how tight-knit that unit is. And they want that level of camaraderie on the defensive side. And maybe it was Yaya, I think it was, where they're planning more dinners together, hanging out together, kind of like just being a gang, like the offensive line is for your team. How excited are you to hear that coming from the players, and how critical do you think that is? I know you're a big communication guy, for your defense to take the next step this year.
I think that's huge, and I tell Yaya he can get that done. All he got to do is say he's treating, and he can get everybody he wants to come to dinner. But it's great because they're such a close knit unit, and for guys to want to be that close and understand what it takes on and off the field. I think that's a great example by the offensive line, and that's very observant of Yaya to notice that. So I think they do a lot of things together. They're younger, obviously, but they'll do more things coming together this year. And the more they do together, the more comfortable they get at playing each other on the field.
Yeah, Coach, and when Zion joined us, he told us that you wanted your cornerbacks to play much closer to the line of scrimmage and not give as much cushion pre-snap. That could signal press man, or it could lead to those corners simply bailing into quarters or cover 3, cover 1. What in your film study kind of prompted that change or prompted that way of thinking, as Zion told us?
Well, it's always been like that, but there's some of them are so young. When you say press, they'll press in inopportune times where they can get picked, or when you say back off, they'll back off. They got to learn there's a fine line in between the scheme of understanding it. I think Zion's gotten a better feel the last year and a half. He does a really good job at it. The younger guys are coming along, like Hayes. I think Dean, he can play up some, he can play back some. He probably needs to play up more. And again, it's dependent on the call and the situation. I just like us to be staying on top, but be more aggressive to the ball, so to speak, if you will.
You know, there's some benefits to having Zion as like your static left corner and Jamel as your static right corner, as it gives those players a chance to really hone in on their fundamentals and their skills on that side of the field, right? Turning and looking for the ball, using the sideline as that extra defender, those kind of things. But there's also somewhat of a predictability to that, right? Well, will you be doing more match coverages this year? I remember like when you had Carlton travel with Jamar Chase, and he really handled that situation, had a really good game against Cincinnati a few years ago. Do you feel comfortable enough having Zion or Jamel, or maybe either one of those guys or both of them, doing a little bit more match coverage and kind of sticking with a receiver wherever that player lines up?
I think the game has changed from 3 or 4 years ago, because they don't really let you match a lot anymore. To play match coverage, you got to be left, you got to be middle, you got to be the slot, you got to be the right corner. And depending on the coverage, everything changes for you. And if you haven't gotten all those reps in there, you're going to be a fish out of water. And to be honest, you're going to be a fish out of water. So even when we traveled Carlton, he traveled, but then if his guy was inside, he just went out further. He went out all the way outside, because the comfortability and the things you have to teach him in there would take so long for him to learn during that game week that it was hard to do. But they come over in the slot a lot. And if the matchups, it's not just about those guys matching up, is can we match up with the tight end? Can we match up with the running back? If you got this guy and say he can take them away, what about the other 3 guys?
Yeah.
If you don't feel good about those matchups, you really don't want to match up too many times. But we have that capability. And I think this year, with the additions of Morrison and Parrish, and along with Zion and obviously Dean, I think we can do some things like that and match up personnel, because they're kind of all interchangeable in certain man coverages.
Yeah, and I remember a couple years ago, kind of along the same lines, the Saints game in 2023, where Dean had a couple of picks in that game. One, I believe, was where he rotated in one of your coverages, almost playing safety, I want to say. Maybe that was the end zone interception.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and then there was the Eagles playoff game where you surprised Philly and all of us by using Zion at nickel and safety when Carlton and Jamel were both healthy for that game. Are you trying to become a little bit more predictable with your lineups this year? I should say unpredictable with your lineups. And I think you alluded to that a little bit by having Parrish and Morrison in the mix. Does that allow you to do a little bit different personnel matchups and maybe have some guys in some surprise spots?
It allows me to try to get the best matchup on the guys that we're playing that week. I think all our corners, to a degree, in certain coverages, they do play some safety.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody but Zion, I think 2 years ago, he played nickel, he played strong, he played free, he played outside at corner. So he got a lot of experience in there, but he could handle all that. And that was right up his alley. So now putting him at corner, and then if we have to move him around, he's done a lot of things that we know that we trust him in there to do those type of things. Dean and Carlton at the time did not do all those things. They weren't made for in the slot. They were very good cover guys, but Zion is more quick twitch. He moves like a small corner, not a bigger corner. So he has the lateral quickness and the movement and to do all them things and the wherewithal to play inside. So he was one of the candidates that really can do a lot of things for us on the field.
So, touching on Zion, I know you mentioned, I think it was last week, how many spots there are, I should say how many candidates there are for the nickel spot. What traits to you make up that ideal nickel, and why are there so many candidates like on your team? And even mentioning Zion, you mentioned him as one of them last week.
Because of the opponents we play, it's not just the short, quick receivers anymore.
Yeah,
we get the 6'2", 220 receivers that really block. And if you're a quick, small slot corner, they're just going to manhandle you in the run game, and they're going to keep running around the corner. So Tyke was a nickel because he could handle all that, and he was very good in zone coverage, and he was very patient in man coverage. We didn't put him in man a lot, but he could play man, and he can take on the run like an outside backer. So he fit certain schemes. And then Parrish is very fast and very quick shifted, and depending on the team we play, that's a passing team most of the time, he could fit some of the roles in there. And Zion, whether it's a big tight end or whether it's a big receiver, when he goes in there from a size standpoint, and he has the quickness and the strength and the power to hang with them all, so he becomes that guy. And then Izzy was probably our most explosive guy in zone coverage, getting from point A to B and breaking things down and recognizing, and he was a heck of a tackler. So they're all different, but depending on who we play, what fits the bill that week, depending on how many things we can rotate. The biggest thing is try to rotate them in without having to substitute. That's what you really want to do. If you can swing some things like that without messing up everybody else, then you'll see a lot more of it. So when I was saying I had a lot of nickels, that's what they're all different types, and they can do a lot of things, a lot of the same things, but they're all different depending on game plan.
So instead of like seeing a Christian Izzian, a wire to wire as your nickel a couple years ago, or Tyke Smith last year, except for the games he was injured, there might be a different nickel depending on the matchups in the game for like an entire week or even for a couple series, depending on who they put in the slot. Is that right?
Yeah. Hopefully it can be a couple series. I don't think it'll be an entire game wire to wire, depending on, we'll have our standard nickels right there, but we'll have certain situations where other guys can move inside and play and still feel comfortable outside.
I'm sure having that personnel and being able to adapt that way has to be a huge help, especially after last season and the way you guys kind of lost a lot of corners at times. But kind of wanted to go back to something you mentioned about the game changing a little bit with, schematically and all that. This was a question we got from one of our other guys on the staff saying that cover 3 is the most commonly used coverage in the league, and it's one that you employ heavily as a base coverage. And obviously in the early 2000s, the Bucs kind of started that wave of, cover 2 was copied around the league before the switch to cover 3. Can you talk about why the change happened to cover 3 and where you think, defensive schemes are headed at this moment?
I think it changed because in cover 2, if you don't have those hell-raising pass rushes up front, there's a lot of holes in it if the quarterback has time to throw. And the ball's coming out a lot quicker. So it's like pick up and throw. So we're trying to play. And most quarterbacks coming out of college are young. And for the most part, all the balls are thrown between the numbers. In cover 3, you can get 4 under. inside the numbers on or inside the numbers, and cover 2, you can only really get 3 under, so to speak, cover 2 and quarters. So it's kind of changing because the ball doesn't go outside the hash much other than 5-yard passes. You don't see the deep balls down the field. You see more catch and run. You see quarterbacks getting out the pocket. You see more jailbreak screens. You see all those type of things. And so guys are feeling better with their corners going up the press and press bail zone. And because the game has changed more in that category, but cover 2 is still run throughout the league quite a bit as well. And I don't think it's too far behind cover 3, if it is at all. And there are different versions of cover 3, whether they're simulated pressures, whether there's regular cover 3, or whether they're fire zones. But, cover 3 is prevalent because most of the balls really go inside the numbers.
Speaking of the game changing, you're an old school guy like me. I grew up, watching in the 80s, like John Riggins, Emmitt Smith, Tony Dorsett. The running game was alive and well back then. Eric Dickerson back in the days, getting the 2,000 yards. And you've done such a good job stopping the run, really, wherever you've been, certainly here in Tampa Bay. Do you like the fact that the running game has had a bit of a renaissance, a resurgence, and it's still a passing league, right? I think we can say that, but the running game seems to be a little bit more prevalent than it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Do you like that as someone who's been in the game as a player and as a coach and someone who's really good at stopping it?
I think it's changes every couple of years. They've gotten away from it for a little while, and you can credit Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry for the running game coming back because those guys have been monstrous in it. It almost went from a year or two ago to the running backs being devalued and non-existent to now everybody wants running back again. So whatever's working in the league, everybody jumps on that bandwagon, whether it's offensively or defensively. And I like that it's back for the simple fact that we have Vita and we have a good chance of trying to stop a lot of the run game. But I think it's good for the game, and it's going to change again in a couple years. And I don't know where it'll go from there, but you have to be on top of the trends and understand where it's headed before it's heading there in order to change and keep up with it.
Speaking of offense, that pesky side of the ball, you've had 4 different offensive coordinators in 4 seasons, and you've actually helped pick out the last 3. Each of them have had their own different style. But during these interviews and these conversations, to get Dave Canales, to get Liam Cohen, and maybe Josh Grizzard was a little easier because you got to see him in action for a year as part of Liam's staff and part of your staff. What do you look for in offensive coordinator hires? Is there one common trait that is singular that you look for regardless of who it's been? They all have similar but yet different approaches to offense. And each one of them that you've picked has been very successful. Certainly the last 2 with the head coach job, and hopefully Josh Grizzard can be very successful for you too, and maybe stick around a little bit longer than just a year.
I look for 2 things. I look for if you know ball without opening your book. Can you recite and spit everything to me and tell me what's going on an offense without looking down in your book or without looking at film to remind you of what you can do? And we look for good people. And as I talk to you and get to know you, I ask around. Obviously, I ask around a lot of people. I get to know you. I want to see if you're a fit for this team and this staff, because we have a very unique staff, so to speak. And if you really don't fit, I don't care how good a coach you are, you're probably not going to be coming in this building. But those guys, each individually, they were smart enough to know a lot of things and smart enough to know they didn't know everything. And they knew who they had to rely on and lean on when they didn't know those things. And that's probably one of the biggest things that really attracted me towards those guys. I thought Dave was very cerebral, very knowledgeable, very calm under pressure. And I thought he could scheme some things in the red zone as well as on third down. And he could not panic when he managed the game. And then I thought Liam came and we already had Baker for a year, and he was a great fit because he was running similar type of things in the offense, but a little more bells and whistles, so to speak, than Dave had. And Liam was very good and very knowledgeable in the run game, the pass game, as far as setting people up, understanding what he had to do to get the guys where he needed to get them. So I thought that was outstanding at the time. And he could tell me these things in the meeting. And I had seen him coach twice when my son was at Georgia. He was at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to be at both of those ball games. So I got to see him for 2 years and kind of stumbled onto him. And you know, I like everybody. I like Jason to see everybody just to get a second opinion there and there. And he can sit down with people and we can put our heads together. And what do you think? And what do you think? And I said, well, this is how he did in the meetings and everything else. So we try to put him in front of a lot of people to get a good feel. I mean, I'll make the decision, but I like to see what kind of person you are. I've had guys that come in that know it inside out and sound like quality control guys because they watch twice as much film.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to decipher that. There's a big difference between knowing and teaching.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to try to decide to decipher. And my biggest thing is, and my biggest strength is I want people smarter than me at their positions doing, and my job is to bring all those people together and get them on one page. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but I got to be smart enough to know that these guys need to work together. And we try to do that, and we've done a good job at that over the past couple of years.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the defensive side of the ball, now we veered the conversation to the offense a little bit.
Let's get back
to the defense. Yeah.
Amen, baby. Thank you.
So we talked to Kalijah Cansey a couple weeks ago, and he had said, you know, I think it was Scott who asked him, if you're healthy for an entire season, what is the limit for you? Like, does the limit exist? And Kalijah said that he believes he can lead the league in sacks if he's healthy for the full year. That number, league leading number, going back, 2020 or so, it's been 18.5. Do you think he can reach that goal?
I think he can get close. I think he can get awfully close. If he's healthy for 17 games, the way he's learned the game, Kalijah's not just a quick player. He's a very smart player, and he's very strong. He understands how people are trying to attack him. He understands what he can attack and when to attack it. Being in the scheme now for 2 years, he has a better grasp of everything. And he does some great things, and a lot of times the ball is out. So if the chips fall right, yes, I think he can get that.
When you look at the outside linebacker room, that's kind of the room where you want your leading sacker to come from. And it didn't happen last year. I think Yaya had 7.5 during his rookie season, but you like those double-digit sack guys, the JPPs, the Shaq Barretts, where you win Super Bowls when that seems to happen. Your outside linebacker room. Does Yaya Diaby have the potential to be a double-digit sacker? And do you see Haason Reddick and Yaya potentially becoming that bookend presence for you that the JPP and Shaq Barrett was?
I think Yaya has potential to be an outstanding linebacker and definitely a double-digit sack guy. I think he's learned a lot more this spring than he's learned since he's been here of how to use his tools and when to use his tools. And we're trying to put him in position to get after the quarterback a lot more. With Reddick coming in, I'm sure he's going to learn a lot of things from Reddick right there. But we expect Braswell to take a leap this year. Nelly's been very consistent since he's been here, and us drafting David Walker, we think we got some hungry guys over there with the young guys coming up. So I expect Yaya to be one of the best in the league this year, and he has the ability to do that.
You mentioned David Walker, and I know it's shorts and T-shirts, and he has not even probably met Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke yet. Those guys are kind of been working off on the side there, but he looks pretty special. I mean, when you look at the tape and just how he moves in the football field, do you kind of get a sense of that? I know Larry Foote was talking about him, and he's pretty fired up about David Walker.
He plays with his hair on fire. I got to see him in pads again. I've seen the Senior Bowls, and I've watched a lot of tapes, and we know he's tough and he can play, and he's got a dog-like mentality. We like that about him. Just got to get him in pads, make sure he's doing the right thing. But he's one of those guys that you're pretty comfortable with knowing it's going to translate over.
Yeah. On the topic of mentality, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you mentioned two things at the annual meeting when we talked to you. It was before the draft and all that. Two things that you'd like to see your team improve on this season, one of which was the defense developing a killer instinct. The other being, how can we avoid these 4 or 5 game losing streaks that we've had in the middle of the season? Have you seen any progress? I know it's been just a few weeks so far with the team, you seen any progress in terms of that mentality?
That's the mentality they're practicing with right now. Obviously, we're not in pads right now, but they're trying to finish plays. They're trying to be smarter. They're communicating a lot more, both sides of the ball, really. So they're prepping for that. It'll heat up more a lot in training camp, but that's the mentality we're going into it with.
This is a bit of a wild card question for me, just because sometimes I'm a bit of a wild card myself. Let's hope this doesn't happen, Coach. But if you're in a street fight, which Bucs player are you picking on your roster to back you up?
Does it have to be a player? Can it be a coach?
Let's go with both. Which coach on your staff would you want backing you up in a street fight? Not that anyone's going to pick on Todd Bowles, but
the coach is Kevin Ross, the corners coach. Kevin Ross. He was a wrestler in high school, and he was an all-state guy. And Kev is Marvin Hagler. He's Marvin Hagler Jr., so I'm okay going with Kev.
Okay.
And player in a fight, I'm taking Godwin. I'm taking Chris Godwin.
You're taking Chris Godwin over Vita Vea?
Vita got size. Chris got toughness.
Okay. I'm not knocking Chris. I'm just saying, like, to me, I would think the obvious choice would be
Vita is George Foreman and Chris is Muhammad Ali. So that's the difference. I'm not saying he's not tough and a brawler, but I think I'm taking Godwin.
My mind is blown, Coach.
Yeah,
you're
I like
defensive
that.
Coach, and you're picking an offensive player. What's going on, Todd?
I'll take Godwin or I'll take Levante.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right.
That's like it.
Just for the record, I'm taking Vita, so I'm glad that we don't have to get in a fight about who's taking Vita. That's good. Coach, let's see if we can break some news on this Pewter Report podcast. Will you be having a joint training camp practice with another team this year, whether it be the Titans or the Bills in Tampa or the Steelers in Pittsburgh? Has that been discussed at all?
We're working on having joint practice with two of them, with the Titans and the Steelers.
Oh, excellent. So that'd be fun to see two teams have joint practices with you. That's good to know.
I always love seeing at least one in Tampa. That's always great.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of the preseason, those teams you're playing, I know you've had some years in the past where you've had some of your assistants call the games and get some experience that way. Do you have any, I know it's early, do you have any inkling of whether Larry Foote and or George Edwards would call any plays this preseason, or will you call the plays all three preseason games?
I'm pretty sure I won't call them all three. We haven't gotten into it yet. We kind of figure those out in the summertime, and depending on, Larry's going back to Pittsburgh, so I know that's kind of a soft spot for him. So he may get to do that one. We'll see as it goes on. I just got to get him on the plane to get him back home.
Yeah, right. Coach, I got to commend you. I think that the coaching changes that you made this offseason, obviously having the opportunity to bring Mike Caldwell back, to put Larry Foote back where I think he belongs. Not to say he can't coach inside linebackers. It's just I've seen some absolutely special pass rush coaches in my time here covering the Bucs for 30 years. Rod Marinelli, Joe Cullen, and I think Larry Foote's one of those guys. He just kind of brings out the animal in these pass rushers. And for George Edwards to kind of become that strategist and help, as you said, help you, especially this offseason, run the defense while you're working with Josh Grizzard, and then he'll certainly help you, whether it's – and do you expect George Edwards to be up in the box to help you in that regards as a pass game coordinator, or do you think he'll be on the field?
We haven't gotten to it yet. We're still putting those things in place. I think Larry, if you put him at corner, he can coach cornerbacks. If you put him at safety, he can coach safeties. I just think he's a hell of a football coach, as well as George, as well as Mike and all those guys over there. To have that brain power in the room is really comforting to know, because we spit ideas around and we talk about things, and they all have different experiences. And Mike has his coming back. George has a wealth of knowledge. Larry has a wealth of knowledge, as well as Rapone and as well as Tim and Rashad. So it's been really good. And to have Charlie in here as well, you got a bunch of coordinators in the room talking ball and coming up with the best answers and really trying to make guys better. And I can see it from the spring and the way those guys meet together. So it's really been comforting to see. I can't wait to put it together on the field, and then we'll kind of figure out who's going upstairs and who's going downstairs.
Yeah, and no disrespect to to Dave Canales or Liam Cohen or Josh Grizzard. I mean, they're all offensive guys. They're my least favorite guys because I don't like offense. I'm a defensive guy. You know that. Having said that, the X's and O's are one thing, but football is still about the Jimmies and the Joes, right? The offensive weaponry that you have from Baker Mayfield to your underrated tight end room to your receivers, which are probably like 10 deep now. Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Sean Tucker. Are you glad as a defensive-minded guy that these are on your team? I know you go up against them, you battle in practice and in training camp for sure, but I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, it presents some problems for the defense. Just you kind of marvel at the offense that you've helped build, you and Jason working together in the draft room. Like you were all on board getting Emeka Egbuka and some of these offensive players throughout the years.
Well, any good defensive coach knows you're going to win the game by scoring a lot of points on offense. So if you can score a lot of points, then you can change your defensive approach and you can kind of pin your ears back and get after it. So I'm all for having offensive players and an assortment of weapons on offense. And if you look at the last 2 years, we've been so banged up in the middle of the season. It's kind of when we've gone on our losing streaks a little bit there that we got to clean up. So the more weapons we have, if somebody goes down and we have a plug and play guy and we don't miss a beat, the better our chances of smoothing out the middle of the season.
I gotcha.
Coach, I'm very curious when we talked about the players who will talk some smack back to you. Conspicuous by his absence was Baker Mayfield. Does Baker get in your ear a little bit, or what's your relationship kind of like with him?
My relationship with Baker is outstanding. We talk, but Baker has an ongoing feud with Larry Foote. Foote makes me look like a preschooler as far as talking smack to players, and Baker is the same way. And there's a lot of back and forth in camp going on and in practice going on. But Larry Foote is the ring leader. He is the Don King of this building, and he's going to talk till the cows come home. And Baker does not have time for me because Foote occupies 100% of his time.
I like it.
That's great stuff. As promised, we asked Coach for permission, and he said, bring it on. We have some questions from our Pewter Report viewers here, and we've got some of these that are super chats, and we greatly appreciate that. This is from Cruz on the radio, $10 super chat. Much love, Coach Bowles. You've been in the league for a long time. What's one locker room or sideline moment that still makes you laugh?
Ooh, wow, that's a lot. For me, I go back to when I was a player, my rookie and my second year back in 86, 87. And I got to the locker room. My pregame ritual for that a couple games was to eat Chippehoys and milk before the game in the locker room while I'm sitting there getting taped up and getting ready. And that at the time, there was no health and nutritionist or nothing like that. So I look back now and it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever done. And I laugh at myself every time somebody reminds me of that. That is probably one of the funniest moments I can recall.
And you still have not given up on the milk and chips ahoy.
I've let him go for a little while. I'm like 6 months on, 6 months off. Try to get in shape in the off season, then the season, and be like, oh, screw it.
Yeah, I got you. This one is from Callum Shaw. We greatly appreciate this. $4.99. This is a £4.99 super chat from across the pond. As Callum is from the UK. Todd, if you could have any player in the NFL from the past play on your team this season, who would you pick? UK Buck.
Mike Haynes from the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I thought he was one of the best press corners that is not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I've seen him play some games that were unbelievable. And obviously I'm a secondary guy, so if I can put him in the secondary with his length and size out there at corner, he would be unbelievable.
You know, another underrated corner. I grew up in Kansas City. I was actually watching Kevin Ross play. He was the Rock, back then. Yeah. Albert Lewis, opposite him, was, I thought, very underrated.
Oh, they were great. They probably were the best 1-2 punch in the league.
Actually, the whole secondary. You had Lloyd Burris and Deron Cherry at safety.
Deron Cherry from Rutgers.
That's right. Yeah. Tony Dungy coached that secondary and then turned it over to Herm Edwards.
Yes, he did.
And Marty Schottenheimer and Bill Cowher's staff. So very interesting connections there. And this is from Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro. He's been a Pewter Report TV channel member for 9 months. Coach, wishing you the best in the upcoming season. Can you share your thoughts on your favorite quarterback to coach, and why is it Baker Mayfield? If you couldn't tell by his name, he's the AKA OG Baker Bro. So he wants you to wax poetic about.
All right, let me explain this the right way. So
Okay.
I had a very good relationship with Jameis when he was here off the field. He was very good with my kids at the gym. Just a great guy. Just competing against him when he always comes across and shake my hand. Tom was unbelievable. You can't say enough about Tom and his football IQ. We could read each other and understand without saying a word. Baker's probably, if I was an outward personality, Baker would be the guy I probably would be. So we have more in common than you really think. He just shows a little more. I probably wouldn't have did the Tommy DeVito, but at the same time, I could think it, but he does not think. So I think we're kind of interconnected that way, and we're kind of just fraternal twins, so to speak.
Baker Mayfield is your spirit animal, is what you're saying.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Gotcha. We got a couple more here, Coach, and we appreciate your time. This is from Matthew Hart, $5 super chat. Hey, Coach Bowles, will you be showing Coach Brizard multiple looks in camp during the call-up periods to see how he adjusts on the fly? Is that really fun for you to – I mean, you have to kind of torment your rookie play callers, right? Whether it's Dave or Liam or certainly Josh, who, like David, never called plays before. But do you kind of take a little bit of like pleasure and really giving these guys some hell, knowing that it's going to benefit them, but at the same time, you're kind of, you get to unleash the hounds.
We don't try to give them hell. It's what we do defensively. We do a lot of things defensively, and they're going to see a lot of things during the season. So what better way to be prepared of seeing it in practice every day? Me being a head coach, I'm on a different side every day. One day I'm defensive, one day I'm offensive as far as cheering for them.
Yeah. Right.
If we get turnovers, then I'm mad at the quarterback. If we don't get any, then I'm mad at the secondary. I can't win. So I have to decide which side I'm rooting for that day. And then whichever side needs to pick me up, I'll kind of go the other way here and there. So it's a thing. We're going to see a lot of things that they do that are different. They're going to see a lot of things that we do that are different. And we're not game planning against each other. So there's going to be some battles won on both sides of the football. But the more they see and the more they get to practice against, the better off they'll be when the season starts.
Gotcha. We have a couple more here. This one is from David Van Dyne, $4.99 super chat. Overhated and underappreciated. You're the man, Coach Bowles. Keep doing your thing. Good luck this season. I believe we can win. Of course, he means win it all.
He could be my agent.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Coach, I loved how you said that the Super Bowl window is open, and it looks like with this roster, there's a chance it can be open for some time. I mean, this is a young, very good, competitive football team that as these players go from second-year guys to third-year guys to fourth-year guys, they're going to gain more experience and get better. But, how fine of a line do you have to walk between instilling confidence in these guys, but then not having them, especially the young guys, right? Because they feel like, oh, well, we didn't win it this year. We'll have next year. But then you've got guys in their 30s, and some of your guys in your 30s have won Super Bowls. Some of them haven't. But there is that sense of urgency. How do you kind of balance the older guys where the clock is ticking and they only have a couple of years left in this league and they want to do great things versus getting the young guys to understand that, hey, just because you've been in the playoffs every year that you've been in Tampa Bay, this is not an every year thing unless we make it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, it means nothing, obviously. You're only as good as the next day. And I was reading one thing on Aaron Judge, said his father always told him, if you're busy celebrating yesterday, you haven't done anything today. And you better make sure you keep doing things today. And you have to start over every year in this league.
Right.
Nothing is a gimme in this league. Everybody's got the same type of athletic players. If you don't put in the work, and then you got to stay healthy, then there's got to be the chemistry and the camaraderie, and then you got to make plays at the right time. So there's a lot that goes into it. You can't take anything for granted in this league. And the minute you think you've arrived in this league, it will humble you real quick. Yeah. It will make sure you get a 50-0 blowout, and you'll be looking like, wow, I can't do that anymore. So These guys got to understand that. And for the most part, they do.
Yeah.
Coach, you just mentioned Aaron Judge, and I don't know if you know this, but if you go to your Wikipedia page, at least as of yesterday, the picture of you that they used is from earlier this year when you threw the first pitch out at the Yankees spring training game. You're wearing a Yankees jersey. Obviously, I know your roots are up in the Northeast, but I just have to say, as someone born and raised in Tampa, as a Tampa Bay Rays fan, it breaks my heart. I know that's not a question, but I just had to say that.
I will say this. I am a huge Tampa Bay Rays fan. I have a ton of Tampa Bay Rays gear, and had they asked me, I would have done anything for those guys. I love them because they develop pitchers. I was a pitcher in high school. They developed pitchers. I always watched the games, just watching the pitchers and seeing how the count goes and how they throw the football. In Tampa Bay, since I've been here, from a pitching standpoint, has done a great job developing pitchers. So I really like watching the Rays, and I have my blue on all the time. I would never disrespect them like that. I have a Yankee jersey because I grew up that way, but I have my Tampa fans and my Tampa gear just as well.
All right,
Scott will never forgive me for bringing up baseball on this podcast.
No, it's fine. It's okay. I don't know what you're talking about when you say baseball. I'm not sure what that means, but we'll go with it. But speaking of that, Coach, what's more pressure, playing in a Super Bowl, coaching in a Super Bowl, or throwing out the first pitch at a baseball game?
Without a doubt, throwing out the first pitch of a baseball game. I was not expecting the team to run out before me, and when I was warming up, I was throwing heaters up, pow, 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 and then I got out there, and I was like, "Sheesh, this is." Then all of a sudden, the plate got further and further away. The more I walked out there. I said, "Well, let me just toss it." And then I just tossed it instead of winding up and really throwing it. And it was a one hopper. And, those were my idols back. Ron Guidry, Willie Randolph, Bucky Dent. I mean, that's pretty special.
For sure.
Right, so it sounds like we need a redemption first pitch at a Rays game. I'm going to start the campaign now. Get you out to a Rays game.
Start practicing then.
Coach, we have our final question of the day. We greatly appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun, and we've learned a lot too. This is from T Woods Cinco Ocho $9.99 super chat. Not being rude when I ask. Honestly, want to know your thinking. Why do you like to play our outside corner so far off all the time?
Honestly, Chad, I do not. And, that's something we're working through right now, and that is not required by the staff. And, the communication that we have and the situation these guys got to understand, being young corners, that they have to move up more. And we've talked about it probably all year. I would like to see them up as well, and I will see them up a lot more. And there's only a few instances where you will see them back, and I'm on the same page with you. So I certainly understand.
And they're going to pick off a lot more passes as a result, right?
That will be key. If we can shut them out and pick off passes in the process, I'm happy.
Amen, Coach Bowles. Thank you so much, Todd, for joining us here on the Pewter Report podcast. Greatly appreciate your time. We'll see you out there tomorrow at OTAs. Wish you and your staff and your team the absolute best in this upcoming season. I think it's going to be a special one. Thank you very much for joining us on the Pewter Report podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That is the man right there, Todd Bowles. Great interview. I love talking with Coach, and I hope that you guys saw a little bit of a different side. Sometimes he's up at the podium and he's all business. Sometimes, just like all of us, when you're at work, I don't say you get grumpy, but it's like there are times when I'm at work and I'm not maybe like in the best mood. Maybe sometimes Bailey Adams calls me and I'm like, "What, Bailey? What do you want?" And I'm a little short. I'm a little short with my answers, a little short with my temper and all that. Sometimes I'm in a jovial mode. You know that, Bailey. Sometimes I laugh and kid. And Coach Bowles is no different from that. I mean, he's a human being. But I like that we got to see a little bit more of the human side of Coach Bowles. If you sit down and have an interview with them for an hour, either on or off the record, you kind of get more of what you saw. And I think that's important because so many of you Bucs fans, you watch the press conferences, and sometimes, hey, guess what? No one's in a great mood after a loss, right? So you're gonna be a certain way. Other times, coaching takes a lot out of you, and sometimes even after a win, it's kind of brief and maybe not forthcoming. But in this environment, you got to see a little bit more of the Todd Bowles that people like myself and Rick Stroud and Jenna Lane and Greg Allman, people that they get those one-on-ones for an hour or more. We kind of see those and really interesting guy, Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, like I every once in a while, we'll get a question in at a press conference to him or whatever, and
Yeah.
it can be on any variety of topics. But being able to sit and talk with him for an hour and him giving us all that time, and seemed like he enjoyed himself. So like it was just kind of cool to see him in a different light and get to talk to him this way.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you guys are giving us some props for the interview. It was good, but I think I give props to Todd Bowles for the answers. Really, it's easy to come up with questions, but what makes a great question is really a great answer. I thought we got some great answers here, and as supply and demand says, I got questions for Jason next week.
We're on to the next one.
I know we're on, we're on to Jason Light now. Right? We already had Todd Bowles. We're on to Jason Light, and of course, that is going to be next Monday at 9:00. I'm sorry, not 9:00. What am I saying? At 4:00 on June 9th. Yeah. Sorry. It's a Monday, folks. We had a little bit of a Sunday funday yesterday. But yeah, we're going to have Jason Light on. That's next Monday, June 9th. And that is going to be at 4:00 live. And as we said with Todd, we will take some super chat questions as long as they are respectful. But at the same time, fair. I mean, we didn't actually every super chat question we got to, Bailey. We didn't do any, censoring or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We pretty much put every question out there that we had a super chat for. And the thing is, we had a ton of questions and comments in there that we just couldn't get to because we have some questions we wanted to get to from the Pewter Report staff. Obviously, for Coach, we had him for an hour, and he was gracious with this time. And we'll have Jason for an hour as well. So you have the opportunity next Monday to do that. Tomorrow, we've got a great show because we're going to be watching football again. That's right. OTA Week 2 analysis. So myself, Matt Matera, will be back tomorrow, and we're going to be breaking down the OTA second practice that we get to see. The Bucs did have OTAs last week, Wednesday and Thursday. They were not open to the media, just like this Wednesday and Thursday OTAs are not open to the media as well. So keep that in mind. But what I can tell you is they have, there was no Hassan Reddick last week, but we did see Benjamin Morrison practice with the team all week. So he is now back in a team capacity, not just on individual. So that's the cool thing about that. The other cool thing I can tell you, and this isn't really like that cool, but, it is hurricane season. And if you want to make sure that you have all of the protection you need, make sure you have not just homeowners insurance, but flood insurance. If you're living in a flood zone in Pinellas County, in Pasco County, anywhere up and down the coast, or if you're by a river or a pond, if you are deemed to be in a flood zone, you need flood insurance just as much as you need homeowners insurance. They're two separate policies. And a lot of Floridians found out the hard way with those back-to-back hurricanes we had last fall. So Briar Greaves can make sure that you are properly insured so that you don't lose everything or some things due to another hurricane that may or may not hit this area. And again, June 1st, which was yesterday, started hurricane season. Protecting your assets starts with the company you can count on. Give Briar Greaves Insurance a call. It's free. They'll do a free consultation with you. If you like what you hear, even have them shop your own car insurance around and see if they can get you a better rate. They have Travelers, Geico, and a lot of the major carriers. So it's a great way to save some money. Who doesn't want to save money on your homeowners or your auto owners insurance policies? I do. So I went with Briar Greaves when Mark Cook told me about him a long time ago. BriarGreavesInsurance.com. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, insurance.com. You can give them a call at 813-876-4166. And Bailey, I know there's a place that you like a lot because you like beer, if my memory serves me correctly. I like beer too. And that's our friends over at Walk-Ons. That's right. It's Monday, so you have happy hour until close, 3 p.m. to close every Monday. And if you can't make it to Walk-Ons tomorrow, well, by God, get there Tuesday. Why? Because they have all-day happy hour from open to close plus $5 Tito's. $3.99 will get you the domestic pints. $5 will give you the premium house pours or happy hour wines for $5.49, which I know that's the size you like, Bailey, the big 22-ounce domestic drafts. I'm with you on that, my friend. $4 get you the Husk Puppies or onion rings. $7 for the Boom Boom Shrimp. Can't eat them because I'll get a shellfish allergy. But I do love the spinach and artichoke dip. That and a half order of waffle cheese fries is a hit for $7. Boneless chicken wings or cheeseburger sliders for $8. 3 different Tampa Bay area locations to serve you. Wesley Chapel up here by my neck of the woods, Midtown Tampa, and then also over in Lakeland.
I have to say, too, those boneless wings.
Yeah.
Went there a couple weeks ago, I think, and this might be new. At least I hadn't seen it before. They've got a hot honey flavor.
Yeah.
Very good. We'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure. Your thoughts on Coach Bowles today? I thought he did a really good job of providing some news too. The Bucs will be having joint practices, which we broke here on the Pewter Report podcast with both the Steelers in Pittsburgh as well as the Titans.
Yeah, it was exciting to hear that. And actually, the last answer, it was kind of interesting to hear with the super chat about playing so much off coverage and saying, why do you like to do that? And his answer being, I don't. And I think that maybe is a misconception where it's that he does do it a lot, or he has done it a lot in the past, but it's been more out of necessity than something he likes to do. And so it's exciting to hear that, he thinks they're going to be able to change that up this year, and you're going to see less of that this year.
Yeah, exactly. Jay YouTube has one question. What's baseball? I agree. I'm not sure. I keep hearing about it. I understand that maybe it's a game that's played here in Tampa. I don't know.
Yeah.
I used to be a baseball fan in just complete and total honesty. I was a Royals fan, grew up in Kansas City, big time Royals fan. I could name like the entire roster to this day from like the years I grew up watching it. George Brett at the top of the list, of course. They went on strike, and I think it's 87, and they lost me. I think it was 87, but just haven't really been a baseball fan ever since. I know that you're a big baseball fan, and Coach Bowles is too. So great questions there, Bailey. I loved how you were on top of that, plus sticking up for your Rays too. Good stuff.
I had to. Glad to hear that he's a Rays guy too.
For sure. Again, appreciate all the comments here from you guys. And thank you so much for your tuning into this. Make sure that if you haven't already, and you should have, but if you haven't, we're going to let it slide. As long as you hit the subscribe button on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, then we'll let you off the hook. But you got to do that. We've had some great numbers thanks to you guys. We just hit 19,000 last year. We're already like over 19,100 on the way to 20,000. That was going to be our original goal, Bailey. You heard me say it in the group chat. It's going to be our goal by the end of training camp, start of the regular season, to be at 20,000. We might be at 20,000 like by the start of training camp, the way we're going.
Hope so.
Thank you all so much for supporting our YouTube channel. And I got a new Pewter Pulse video that I put out on Friday about Hassan Reddick. Hopefully he shows tomorrow. If he does, we'll talk about it. If he doesn't, guess what? We'll talk about it. And we also have Graham Barton. It's going to be the next Pewter Pulse video I do, which will be literally in moments, and I'll have it later tonight on Pewter Report TV. So you can check out my new Pewter Pulse video. Make sure you visit pewterreport.com for all the best Bucs coverage. We'll have OTA coverage tomorrow with an insider, as well as other great stories during the week. And of course, the mandatory minicamp is next week. That's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then it's off for the summer. Not for us. We're still going to be around doing podcasts 4 times per week, all the way through to training camp, and then all the way through the regular season and the playoffs. But the team will go away, and that's okay. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. We're actually going to have some really fun shows this summer. We're going to get all the Pewter reporters on here. We're going to do like a Buccaneer all-time draft. And we're going to have just like a live draft with all the Pewter reporters and just picking the best Buccaneer team. We're going to let you all decide who wins. So I think that'll be fun.
Yep. Absolutely.
Any other thoughts, Bailey, on today's show? Thank you so much for filling in for Matt Mateo. He was racing back from the airport. He was with a Montauk at a wedding. So
appreciate the opportunity to talk with Coach Bowles and appreciate him for his time. And we'll have, I don't know how many stories on pewterreport.com coming out of this interview. So got to get to work.
Yep, exactly. Well, you heard the man. We're getting ready to work. We got another show tomorrow, the Bucs OTA show. That's going to be at 4:00 Eastern time live, where we'll talk about the exploits of Benjamin Morrison, who's back participating full-time with the team now. He's not just squared away off doing indies. He's doing full-time defense, 11-on-11 stuff. So that's exciting to see. And we will be back tomorrow, as I said, for that edition of the Pewter Report podcast. For Bailey Adams, I'm Scott Reynolds, saying we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the next edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.